Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an ancient story that is going to fundamentally challenge everything our modern culture tells us about value, success, and what it truly means to have character. We're actually going back thousands of years to unpack a forgotten narrative that honestly is just as relevant to your life right now as it was the day it happened.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this for a second. Imagine owning a highly valuable piece of land, a thriving business, or some incredibly precious resources, and then willingly surrendering absolutely all of it. Not for a tax write-off, not for some good PR, and without asking for a single dollar in return. It sounds completely unbelievable, right? No way someone actually does that. Yet one man did exactly that. Let's look at the wild circumstances that forced this incredible decision.
Section 1. A nation in crisis. And believe me, crisis is an understatement here.
The backdrop to this story is one of the absolute darkest moments in ancient Israel's history. Let's walk through exactly how fast things went south. In week 1, King David makes a really critical error. Driven by pride, he orders a military census, basically trusting in sheer human military strength rather than trusting in God. By week 2, God is deeply displeased with this arrogance. Week 3 brings absolute terrifying devastation as a deadly plague sweeps right through Israel. Finally, in week 4, a repentant and totally desperate King David gets a divine instruction. He has to build an altar to stop the destruction, but he's told to build it in a very specific place. David is sent to the property of a man named Araunah, specifically his threshing floor. Now, a threshing floor wasn't just some empty patch of dirt out in the middle of nowhere. It was the absolute economic engine of a family. It's where the harvest was processed, literally where the grain was separated from the chaff. For Araunah, this property was his primary source of livelihood. We're talking about his income, his retirement plan, and his generational wealth all rolled into one. This was his most vital asset.
Section 2. Araunah's extraordinary choice.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark choice Araunah faces. Imagine the scene. The king of Israel, desperate and burdened, shows up right at your workplace to buy your property to build an altar. Suddenly, Araunah is thrust into this massive, high-stakes situation. Notice the total contrast in how a normal person might respond here. A wealthy, desperate king wants your property? I mean, that is the ultimate seller's market. Most people would instantly recognize the business opportunity, demand a premium price, and absolutely maximize their profit. But Araunah? He bypasses that completely. He chooses the unthinkable. He offers the whole asset, entirely for free.
And you know, it wasn't just the land. Araunah surrenders this incredible triad of resources pretty much instantly. Number 1, the incredibly valuable threshing floor itself. Number 2, his own oxen to be used for the sacrifices. And number 3, the wooden yokes and his own farming equipment to serve as the fuel for the altar fire. He literally offered up his land, his livestock, and his tools without a second thought. His priority wasn't padding his bank account at all. It was honoring God in a moment of sheer national crisis.
Section 3. The cost of sacrifice. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive turning point in the historical narrative, because Araunah's radical generosity actually forces King David to examine his own heart. David looks at him and says, "I will not offer sacrifices that cost me nothing." David flat out refuses to accept the free gift. He insists on paying full price for the land and the animals. Why? Because David realizes that if he just passes the cost off to Araunah, well, it isn't a sacrifice at all, is it? True repentance, true worship, and true integrity, they require personal cost. The combination of these two men's actions leads to this beautifully profound 4-part resolution. We've got a repentant king willing to pay the price. We have a generous landowner willing to give it all away. We have an altar of worship finally built. And the result? God answers the sacrifice. The deadly plague is stopped in its tracks, and a nation is restored. Section 4. The integrity standard. So, what does this all mean for us? How does an ancient transaction over farm equipment apply to us sitting here today? Well, modern culture constantly trains us to ask one question: what's in it for me? It measures success entirely by accumulation, maximizing profit and climbing the ladder. And listen, managing resources wisely is perfectly fine, but integrity calls us to a much, much higher standard. Integrity flips the script and asks, what is the right thing to do? Araunah valued doing the right thing way more than he valued his possessions. Because, let's be real, anyone can do the right thing when it costs absolutely nothing. It is incredibly easy to be honest when honesty pays well. It's super easy to be generous when you have a massive surplus. But the true test of your character, that only arrives when honesty, obedience, or generosity requires giving up something of high value to you. True integrity always has a price tag.
Section 5. Your lasting legacy. How does choosing character over convenience actually impact your life right now? Well, in a world where everyone is looking for a shortcut, people of true integrity stand out like a lighthouse. First, it creates unshakable credibility. People know you are exactly who you say you are. Second, it builds deep, lasting trust. Third, it inspires others to actually follow leaders who place principles above profits. And finally, it outlives temporary titles and possessions. Your character becomes your legacy. But building that legacy requires asking yourself some really tough questions.
Question 1. Would you choose integrity if it literally meant losing money? If doing the right thing meant taking a financial hit, returning funds that aren't yours, or passing on a totally shady but lucrative deal, would you do it?
Question 2. Let's bring it into the corporate workplace. Would you choose honesty if it cost you a promotion? If telling the truth about a mistake or giving credit to a coworker instead of taking it for yourself meant you got passed over for that corner office, would you still tell the truth?
Question 3. Would you choose generosity if it actively reduced your personal comfort? It's one thing to give from your excess, sure, but would you step up and do the right thing if it meant downgrading your own lifestyle or giving up your ease to help someone else in a crisis? So the crucial point is this final question. Would you choose what is right even when nobody would know the difference? When the audience is completely stripped away, when there's zero reward, no recognition, and no consequence for taking the shortcut, does your character remain solid? These questions reveal the true condition of who we are when the doors are closed.
Ultimately, our greatest legacy is not what we accumulate, but who we become. Arana's legacy wasn't built on his financial portfolio. Money comes and goes. Possessions eventually fade away. The titles you hold at work, those are entirely temporary. But the impact of an honest, sacrificial life outlives us all.
So I'll leave you with this. What are you unwilling to surrender? The next time you face a choice between personal gain and doing what's right, I really want you to remember Arana standing on his threshing floor, offering his whole livelihood for a greater purpose. Remember that integrity is measured by what you are willing to give up. If you found this lesson as transformative as I did, and you want to keep exploring how to build an unshakable character, be sure to subscribe, drop a like, and turn on those notifications. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I cannot wait to see you in our next explainer.